What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share the video. Hit the join button and become a member. Why? Where members get exclusive content. Hit the bell icon on my channel so that you will receive a notification every time that I drop a video, and you can go and check the video out. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so you can get that notification every time that I drop a video. Let's get into it. And this story takes us to West Los Angeles. A Crip gang, I will not say which gang it was. Some of you will already know because this was really a hot story at the time. I'm also not going to say the names of these people. I will just give their acronym. Again, some people will still know who I'm talking about, even though this information that I'm about to give on this crime cannot hurt these people at this juncture. It's impossible. Since everyone, sometimes is sensitive on YouTube about me mentioning their gang and their this and their that, I'm just not going to mention their gang, just to avoid any unnecessary problems. But here in West LA, there was indeed a Crip gang, and there were two individuals from this gang. Let's call him, one of them, D and P. No pun intended. Now, this is really an acronym for their name. P is the beginning of this one person's name, and D is the beginning of the other person's name. They're gang names. Now, these two individuals were putting in work. They were tight with one another, like brothers. I used to stay in their hood back in the days. I know these two individuals personally. In fact, I know everyone involved in the story personally from the street. These two individuals kept their hood going, amongst other individuals though. But these two were some strong dudes, and they began, after committing crimes for their gang, putting in work on the opposition. They progressed into robberies. D and P did. And they began to hit licks. And they were coming up. Now, P was the younger of the two. P at the time was perhaps 22 years old. And D was 27, 28 years old. And they had an OG homeboy by the name, let's call him B.I. Again, an acronym for his real name, B.I. And he had just did a lot of time in prison. And B.I. was on his way home from prison. And he had got word there in prison, even though the communication was different. This was about 1993 when this crime happened. But B.I. had already gotten out of prison about 1990, 1989. He had been back and forth for a couple of violations, but he hadn't caught any new charges. He wasn't going back for any real time, and he could deal with that. But on his way home from prison, he had already made it explicitly clear to everyone that would listen that he was not going back to prison under any circumstances. Now, again, he still ended up going back, but these was for 2 and 3 month violations, 6 months. He said that he would not come back to prison and do any real time. He would not come back for a crime, a real crime, a new charge to prison. He had made this clear to his cellie. He had also made it clear to everyone that would listen. And he had gotten word, though the communications were different, there were no cellular phones there in prison at the time, you can still communicate. And he had gotten word that D and P was out on the street putting in a lot of work. They were coming up. They had started hitting banks even on the low. And B.I. had already made his mind up that he wanted in. He felt like the system had did him dirty, that he had to pay restitution for his prior indiscretions, and that he was leaving prison down bad. He was broke. But he was an OG from his hood, and he wasn't going to stand for being broke, and he was also not going to return to prison. Something had to give. He felt like the system owed him something, and he was going to get it one way or another. As soon as he got home from prison, he linked up with D and P and told them that he wanted in on their operation. They also made it clear that he was not going back to prison under any circumstances. That if they were going to come with him on any missions, they had to understand they might not come back. He did put that on the table. That was their chance to say, well, we don't want to be doing this with you because we're young and we're not fighting a lot of time if we get caught. We're not, a robbery, we getting 5 years, 6 years. We're not trying to turn this into a life sentence. So no, we just continue doing what we're doing together, going on our missions together, and you go on your own mission. But this was the big homie. An OG from their hood who got out and took the reins immediately in their territory. They didn't want to disappoint him, let him down, seem soft in front of him. So they all agreed, fine, this is the new crew, the three of us. They began to plot and plan the best ways to get bags full of cash. What establishments to rob and which ones not to rob and why. And just like the dudes from the North Hollywood Shootout who robbed the bank there in Hollywood, I think the reason for that is because, or at least part of the reasons that people rob in these sort of areas is because you feel like the people there are already rich. So they're going to be more apt to give you the money without putting up a fight. Not going to be too many good Samaritans trying to stop you and lose their lives because they're rich already. They don't give a damn if you take this money. Just don't bother them. And this is why a lot of people go out and there's a lot less police presence out here in these areas. Even though this is rich neighborhoods and the police patrol to protect the rich, it's less police present than it is in the ghettos, grottos, and catacombs of America in the western part, in the rich part. So people feel like they can go and rob these banks, jewelry stores, what have you, and they're more apt to get away because of those circumstances. So they decided that they were going to rob a jewelry store out in West LA. There was also another gang that I'll talk about soon that had started robbing armored trucks. And they were getting away for a while. Back to these people, D, P, and BI decided they were going to hit a jewelry store. They were familiar, at least D and P were, with this person that owned the jewelry store. But this was not going to be a smash and grab where you go in there, bust the glass out, grab a couple of watches and run out. They wanted everything inside of the jewelry store, everything. BI was fresh out of prison, hungry for money, hungry for respect, hungry for revenge and retribution against a system that he felt like failed him. And so this was going to be a takeover style robbery where they tied the individual up and anyone else involved and cleared everything out of the store. All of the jewelry and all of the money. No smash and grabs. We're going down here. They put the plan in place. Indeed, they had their machinations and decided that the best time to hit the jewelry store would be early in the morning when the owner was first opening up, so that it wouldn't be too many people patronizing the jewelry store at this time. The less people, the less witnesses, the better. With the plan in tow, they loaded up into the car and made their way to the jewelry store early one morning. It was still dark out, but they knew that the jewelry store owner used to go in there early to make his preparations for the opening day. They got in there and they indeed took the jewelry store owner and laid him down, tied him up. They did not beat him. They did not harm him. They just laid him down, roughed him up a little bit, threw him on the ground, and tied up his hands with rope. The rest, the other two, while the one was tying him up, was going through the store. Told him, What's the code to the safe? What's the code to the safe? They got into the safe and got bags of cash. They also loaded up bags of jewelry, watches, chains, rings, earrings, diamonds. And no one else was inside of the store. So there were no witnesses. Even though certainly they had cameras in there, there were no physical witnesses. They made their way out, made it back to their car, and took off, seemingly getting away scot-free. Not long after leaving the store, and they were driving back to their destination with money, guns, and jewelry in tow, the police got behind them. Panic set in. What is this? It became quiet inside of the car as they continued to drive, contemplating their next move. Come to find out, the police had only gotten behind them based on the registration of the car being expired. They had made a crucial mistake, had not planned this robbery out in detail well enough. Something like that should have never happened. They're believing that the police has gotten behind them because they just robbed a jewelry store. And somehow the victim got out of his ties and was able to call the police. This is what they're believing, and that more police cars are imminent. They have to be coming behind this one police car. And the best way to get away, the only way to get away, would be to stop and engage this officer right now while he's by himself, or just the two by themselves, just the one police car. Because in a minute, it's going to be 10, 15 police cars right here. We don't have a chance. Our only chance is to do whatever we have to do with them, and then we have a chance to get away. This is going through the mind of pretty much everyone in the car. But they just continue to drive, and no one is voicing anything. But the police is still behind them, telling them, and has turned on their lights. Eventually, the silence-filled air was no longer silent when everyone heard a familiar voice and a familiar statement. I'm not going back to prison. Filled the air. What to do now? It's clear to everyone what that statement means. It's about to go to another level. DNP, they want no parts of this. They're young and they're facing 5 or 6 years in prison, even for a jewelry store robbery, still just a robbery. Yeah. They don't want to sit here and shoot it out with the police and perhaps be unalived or go to death row for unaliving 2 police officers. But what to do? This is their OG homie. They're all in now. They're sitting here. They're caught with their hand in a cookie jar. They have the weapons, the jewelry, and the money from this lick. BI tells them, stop the car. We can't outrun them. More are coming. Stop the car, let me out, and then y'all just go. They stopped the car. The police told them, get out, get out. Put your hands up and get out. You in the passenger seat, you step out first. Even though it's just expired registration, but they had already, they did not pull over for a while. They had continued to drive, fumbling around in the car and this and that. Now the police are suspicious, thinking that something is up. So they're taking precaution. And then BI, he jumps out of the passenger side, weapon drawn, and starts shooting at the police. And it's a shootout going on back and forth. The police are shooting out the glass in the car. So the driver decided to drive off, to pull off, because they didn't get out and start shooting. They didn't want any parts of that. They drove off and left BI there to shoot it out with the police. and the police unalived B.I. I don't even recall if he hit one of them or whatever, but neither one of them were unalived. They unalived him. They do have vests. They are trained to shoot. They unalived him and then went back to the video camera inside of the jewelry store, made a connection as to who else was involved. And they went eventually, within days, and arrested D and P, who at the time had gotten away from the scene. They went back and arrested them and charged them with the jewelry store robbery and the unaliving of B.I. Indeed, if you commit a crime with someone and that person is unalived during the commission of that crime, if someone else unalives that person, if you and someone, if myself and someone runs into someone else's home and robs the home, and the person that I am with, the homeowner, pulls out a gun and unalives that person, unalives my friend that I'm committing this crime with, the law says that they are going to charge me with his unaliving. Even though he's my friend and someone else unalived him, since I was committing a crime with him, and during the commission of that crime, he came up dead, I'm going to be charged with his death. This happens all of the time. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. They charged D and P with their own big homie's death for the police unaliving him. And of course, with the jewelry store robbery. And that was about 1993 because I was in the county jail with D and P in January and February of 1994. And last I checked, they were all still in prison, or both of them were still in prison. And B.I., as I said, he's he rests in peace. It was crazy. He had already made it clear that he wasn't going back. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Should they have just got out and shot it out with the police as well? Were they right for leaving their OG homie there? Should they have ever even been on a lick with him? He made it clear that they might not come back, that he's not going back to prison. And since they're only fighting 4 or 5 years, should they have just been on robberies with people who were facing that same time and had no problem with going to do that time other than getting out and shooting it out with the police? I don't know, man. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. That's crazy. Rest in peace to B.I. Remember when this shit happened. And as I said, the other dudes, they got life in prison for the unaliving of their own homie and the robbery itself. No 1-1 in this situation. I'll be back. And in the meantime, stay free, people.